Okay, so in this video, I want to show you something about using continue and break statements. And I also want to help you recall what I said earlier about how the computer evaluates your conditions. So if I said, while um, 5 is greater than 4, right? Well, we all know that 5 is greater than 4, so this statement is true. So what it does is it says true. And because it says true, it will do whatever's in here. So that's how it usually evaluates our information. Now, what if I just directly put true? Will that ever be false? Will that ever not be true? Oh, let me just get rid of this for now. Oh, will that ever not be true? No, it will always be true because I said true, and true is always true. So it will just infinitely print quack. Now, if I said false, I think you can guess what would happen. It would just never ever print. That line would never happen. It would just go straight to whatever comes after it, which in this case is end of program. Now, one way that you can exit out of something if you have an infinite loop. And by the way, there are places where you'll use an infinite loop, as I'll show you in an example for loops as well. But first, I want to show you this. Um, you can have something inside of here happen and something inside of here check. So if I have a counter, right? I set the counter equal to 0, and I want to increase the counter by 1 every time it types quack. Now, if the counter is less than or equal to 15, continue. What does continue mean? Okay, so continue just means ignore whatever comes after this line continue that's inside this while loop and just go back to the beginning of the loop. So just continue from here and just keep going like this. That's essentially what it means. Now, this statement will be false at some point because I set counter to keep increasing by 1. And once it reaches 16, this statement will be false and it will not print, it will not do the continue statement. So then what happens? Okay, so now it says print done saying quack and then it breaks. So break means it gets out of the loop. It breaks out of the loop. And now we won't be doing any of this again. It'll just go straight to whatever the next line is, which in this case is end of program. So now if you see, it printed quack a bunch of times, and now it says done saying quack and end of program. Now, similarly, that's how we can use break and continue in a while loop. You could also use break and continue for if-else statements, such as the way I used it here, and you could also use that outside of a loop. So you could use a break and continue in a if-else statement outside of a loop. Actually, you wouldn't use continue, just break. But you can also use it in a for loop. So maybe we want to have, just for an example, something that prints even numbers ranging from 1 to 20. Okay? So in that, what we can do is for I in, or let's say this time for number in range 1 comma 21, because we want to include 20, right? And we want to start from 1, not from 0 this time. Okay? So for number in range 1 to 21, we want to check a condition. Is the number equal? Now, how do you know if a number is equal? Well, you know if the number is divisible by 2, right? So what we can do, and this is going to use something that I showed you earlier, an operator, is the modulus operator. So if we did number and we did, um, let's see, if number 2 equals 0, print number, else continue. Okay? Or actually, how about not? And we do continue. Otherwise, print number. So what happens here, right, is it will find the remainder of the number divided by 2. Now, actually, let's just start from 2, because otherwise it won't work. If we have 2 divided by 2, the remainder that we get is 0 because 2 fits perfectly in 2. But if we did 3 divided by 2, we get a remainder of 1. That's why it won't work. And anything that doesn't perfectly divide by 2 is going to give you a remainder. And that's why this modulus operator can be pretty useful, because you know that it's not going to equal 0 when you use when you get the remainder. Right? So if the number divided by 2 doesn't have a remainder of 0, then skip the number and just continue and just change the number to being whatever is next in the list of numbers. Otherwise, I don't need to add an else statement, by the way, because I already use a continue here. Otherwise, I want it to print whatever the number is. So now if you see, it prints all of my even numbers right here. And again, as I showed you earlier and explained multiple times, what it does when I say range is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, keeps going until we get to 20, because 21 is not included. So yeah, if I had done 1, by the way, the reason I didn't do 1 was because it would also think, oh, never mind, I guess not. Yeah, because 1 divided by 2, I don't really think it has a remainder. Anyway, um, you see what I mean. Yeah, so that's how we can use continue. You might use break as well. So yeah, I don't know how you can use break exactly for an even number situation, but I'm sure you could figure out a way. So if I had like divided by 3 and we said from, actually, yeah, this is hard to think of, but yeah. One more thing I want to say is when you have range, right? Something special that you can do with range is you can actually use an increment. So rather than going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 20 like that by adding 1 each time, it'll actually add 3 each time. So now I could do 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, all the way until I get to 20, if 20 is even included. So 20 might not be included actually. Yeah, 20 is not good. Yeah, 20 is going to be there actually. Yes. So if the number, now what we're doing is, I don't know why you'd ever use that in this case, but yeah, you can increment. Essentially, is that's what I mean to say. So instead of doing this check, a better way if you want to check if something was even is you could just add 2 starting from the first even number. So I just start from, in fact, I can start from 0 and I can go to like 100, and it'll always only give me even numbers because I'm only ever adding 2 to it. So I get 4, 6, 8, 10, and 98, because remember 100 is not included. 0 is though. And as you see, I got all these even numbers in here. So yeah, that's pretty much all it is. You can use break, continue, you can use if statements inside of loops as well. You can actually use break statements inside of if statements as well if you wanted. And yeah, that's pretty much all it is about loops.